Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Barrett Louie, and I'm part of the marketing team here at RiskIQ. We're excited you were able to join us for today's workshop. We'll be walking through how to begin your investigation with a known good on the internet, then track benign systems through infrastructure chaining to pinpoint connected adversaries and their systems. In addition, the team will demonstrate how to identify and scale threat investigations against LogoKit. Before we get started, there are a couple housekeeping notes. First, today's workshop is being recorded. Second, today's session will be interactive. Throughout the workshop, we'll be unmuting lines for questions and conversation. If you have a question while your line is muted, please send them through the questions window in the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll answer as many questions as we can as we go. Now, let me introduce you to today's speakers. First, Benjamin Powell. Benjamin is RiskIQ's Director of Technical Marketing and will be leading today's workshop with two members of our research team, Jordan Herman and Adam Castleman. And with that, I'll hand it over to Benjamin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hey, this is a special day for me because I have two researchers, and the research that they've done is phenomenal, and it will be the first use case that we walk through. So I want to thank both of you, Jordan and Adam, for coming today and talking about the research you've done. You've published two articles about LogoKit, and can't wait to hear all about it and get into the nuts and bolts of how you detected it and what you found. Give me a quick second. Here we go. So what I want to do is I quickly want to go through and explain some stuff with RiskIQ so you can understand how it's licensed. So if you have a free account or if you're using a free email or a corporate email, what the difference would be. Everybody today, you're going to have a promo code, and the promo code's on the bottom of every slide. Today it's VRTHW-2021 LogoKit, and with that code you'll unlock full access to everything for 7 days. So if you've had a trial before, you can always use that code. So please make sure that you're using it, whether you're using a free account or a corporate email account. Now, the differences in the account structures that we have is if you're using a free email account, you're not fully vetted that we know who you are. So we don't give you access to all of the data sets and all of the time periods that you would have with other types of accounts. So for example, we won't give you the services information, like what ports open, how the headers looked, if you use that free email account. Also, we're only going to give you 2 weeks worth of history to look at. But if you use a corporate email account, we'll give you 90 days of history, and we'll give you that service so you can see what ports are open on IP addresses that you're searching on. Now, if you're using a paid account or you're actively in a trial, you're going to see everything, all of our advanced data sets. And the reason why we are able to have these advanced data sets is because we're collecting the data ourselves. And I'll go through and I'll explain some of the things that we do. Now, when you look at the differences in accounts and the history that you can see, it's a big difference for investigation. So for example, if I'm using the free email account and only 14 days of information, if I start off with an IP address, I can see like the domain, the cert, open source intelligence, and maybe the who is information. But if I'm using that corporate email, I'll have a bigger period of time so I can see greater relationships, and I'll be able to see those services. So that might link other information together for me. And the enterprise account, where we have all the data sets and looking back for the entire history that we've collected information on, could be over 10 years. We're able to start off with that same IP address, see the malware, the domains are associated with the trackers, what's going in and out of all the websites, and all those relationships, and build out that full infrastructure for that attacker. So quickly, I'll go through and explain some of the differences, and the main difference here between the free community and the professional one is that you get services, the services information, if you use your corporate email account. If you want to convert over your free account that was using like a Gmail account to a corporate one, we can actually migrate your history if you need it. And your projects if you if you have a lot of information in there. And with all of the other data sets that we have, you're going to be able to see relationships that you can't see with any other tools or products that are out there. Now, the number of queries that you get, it's basically between 200 to 350 queries a day if you're using corporate or free email accounts. And if you have the enterprise account, it's about 10,000 a month that we give you. We give you enough to do whatever you need to do. The history, the projects, we also give you the analyst insights. These are the additional things that we've done looking at the data to be able to bring in information to give you some context and let you know if it's good or bad. And also the ability to do keyword monitors to say, for example, look at this domain, tell me if a new IP address happens, and it'll automatically start adding it to a project. So it's like a query that runs in the background that updates that you can use to keep track of what's happening. Or when your investigation's over, if you add it all to a project, you can quickly go back and see how that investigation has progressed since the last time you've looked at it. Now, the promo code that we're giving you today is for 7 days. But if you're in a trial, the trial goes for 30 days. Same access as the promo code, it's just a longer period of time. So if you haven't tried to kick off a trial, you should do so. Now, if you haven't created an account, you can go to community.riskiq.com/registration and register and put in your promo code in there when you create the account. But if you've already created an account, you can go inside of PassiveTotal. If you go to the upper right-hand corner, there's a little person there. And if you go to the account settings under profile, there's an area to add the promo code. And if you click on the little pencil there, you can put the promo code in. Please make sure that you keep it all lowercase. It's case sensitive. So we want you to make sure it works. And as soon as you type in the promo code and you click out, you'll see the query amounts and the API access jump up tremendously from what it was for the free accounts. Okay. So some of the tools that we're going to be using today to explain what's happening when I get into it is we're going to be using RiskIQ, the Google Safe Browsing check site to see if something is good or bad according to Google, URL Scan.io, potentially hybrid analysis, and then we'll look at some abilities to take some JavaScript that's been obfuscated and take away that encoding and then beautify it so we can actually look at it and figure out what that script is kind of doing. And so that's what we're going to be doing when we're doing the known good investigation. Okay? And so with that, we'll jump in and explain who we are. So I'm Benjamin Powell. I'm the Director of Technical Marketing here at RiskIQ. I've worked in IT for over 30 years, focused in security for about half the time. I live in San Diego. One of the fun facts is I tell people I spearfish, but in our industry, when I tell people I'm a spearfisherman, they don't want to take my emails anymore. I'm born and raised in San Diego, so I've worked for a financial services organization. I worked for an organization, First American Credco. We did 30% of the credit reports for the nation. I ran network operations and I did security there. We took TransUnion, Equifax, Experian data, merged it together and gave it out to financial institutions. And then from there, I went over to the dark side when I started working for manufacturers of software, security software. And I've been at 4 different startups. So I've worked in all different industries, ran teams that were big and small, and I love to spearfish. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jordan to talk about himself.
Hi, I'm Jordan Herman. I've been in security for about 7 or 8 years, something like that. I've been in RiskIQ since 2016. Before that, I was a SOC analyst and a sysadmin at a managed security services company. Done a lot of work on Magecart, scam stuff. Recently, a bit more on phishing and some other areas. So you might have seen some of the stuff that I've written on our threat intel portal. And I just bought a house for the first time, and I'm very tired. because we're fixing a lot of stuff and painting and all that.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Hey, Adam.
I'm Adam Castleman. I'm a threat researcher and vulnerability researcher here at RiskIQ. I have just about 10 years in cybersecurity. I'm a reformed red teamer, as Jordan and I like to say, coming from a background of mostly penetration testing and again, red team operations. I've been with RiskIQ for just about a year now. I have a bachelor's of science in information assurance, which was a fun journey through a NSA accredited program. And a little fun fact about me is I got to participate in the Hack the Pentagon and Hack the Army bug bounty programs.
So awesome. So I'm glad it was that, because I thought someone's going to break through the door right now and take you away if you hack the Pentagon. So good.
They might not.
So thank you both of you, because our tools are great, but without both of you, the research team, that's really the glue that puts things together, where you find these things and can talk about them. So it's an honor to have both of you here, seriously. And when we go through and you see the type of stuff that you're going to talk about, I am always blown away at how you find things and how you link things together. It's incredible. So today what we're going to talk about is two different types of things. With these workshops, we try to do like a known good, known bad, like start off with something good or start off with something bad, and then find bad things. And today's workshop, we're gonna start with something good, like a domain, like an organization would have, and then look at the people that are targeting them and see what happened and see if we can piece it together to find the full scope of the investigation. And then with LogoKit, Jordan and Adam are gonna walk through the entire investigation and explain what they did to put the research together and the articles that they published with those. Now, one thing is we have a resource site that if you'd like to go through and see some additional exercises and investigations, you can find it at riskiq.com/threat-hunting-resources. So one of the things that we like to do is we want to find out who's here, like what your job titles are, what makes you tick, because when we present the information, if you're a Vuln person, or if you're a SOC analyst, or a threat investigator, or a red team, blue team, we can frame the information a little bit different to make it more meaningful to you. And so Barrett, I'd love for if you could kick off the poll questions so we can find out who's with us today. So the first question is, what area of the organization do you work for? And please just click on the response, and we'll end the poll in a couple seconds, and we'll find out what groups of individuals we have here. So we have about 28% are incident response, 2% vuln management, 23 are the SOC, and 47 are threat analysts, and sorry to say, no pen testers. Okay. Okay, what type of PassiveTotal accounts are you using? And the reason why I like to ask this is I'll let you know what you get or what you'll lose after your trial or the promo code ends. So I want to frame it up so you understand what's happening. Okay, 20% are using free emails, 55% corporate email, and 25% are customers. They have paid enterprise accounts. Okay, great. Have you heard of LogoKit? Yes or no? $36 yes, 64 no. So when we're done, you're going to go back and talk to your colleagues and say, oh, wow, we really need to look at this. Okay, has your organization ever been impacted by a web skimmer? 24% yes, and 76% no. So when we get done with this exercise that I'm going to be doing later, you'll be able to go and look to see if potentially you're impacted or not. Okay. Have you used the PassiveTotal API before? Yes or no? So 33% yes, 67% no. So if you ever use Maltego, for example, you can enable the transforms which use the RiskIQ PassiveTotal API. Next workshop, we're going to be talking about how to use the API to jumpstart your investigation. So if there's certain things that you do all the time when you investigate, you can automate those. So then you can run a script, get the results, and see the information right away. So that will be the next workshop. So we're going to have a basic one to talk about the API, and then we'll expand it with a further one to do full-blown API-only access of PassiveTotal. So there'll be a two-parter. So the first part will be next workshop. Okay.
And that wraps up the poll questions, Benjamin.
Perfect. Thanks, Barrett. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through and just talk about RiskIQ and how we capture the data and why we do things. One of the things to talk about is that every time we publish something, we burn the infrastructure of the threat actor, and the threat actor adapts. And then we have to adapt potentially how to find them. And this is a repetitive process that we go, iterative process that we go through when we publish, and then the threat actor finds out and they change. But what RiskIQ does is we go out and we gather information on the internet as a real user. So the way that we detect things is by having a crawler go out there that acts like a real user. It might go and submit a query to a search engine, go through, find some results, and start going through and clicking a little bit, having another headless browser go there and do some other actions, acting like a real user. So when we collect this information in, it allows us to understand what's out there. So for example, we see all the new domains that come online, all of the new hosts that pop up, all of the DNS records that are there. We do about 2 billion web requests a day. We see over 300,000 new port observations. And we also have probably one of the largest mobile app databases in the world, with all of the mobile apps that are in, when you're thinking about mobile apps, you're thinking probably about Google and Apple's mobile app stores. But there's a lot of other ones that might link to the real stores, or they might have copies of the APKs in their store, or a hybrid model. So we actually go out to all those other ones and find out all the malicious mobile apps as well. And so in the future, we'll be doing some more workshops where we'll look at mobile app infrastructure. So when we have this information, and it gives us that starting point, like if you start off with a piece of malware, we can see the IP address and then the cert associated with that, the domain associated with that cert, its IP, and we start linking this together. So with research, what we found was, when we're talking to customers, if they publish something, whether RiskIQ published it or another research organization published an article, users of PassiveTotal would go out there and say, hey, I want to see if there's anything else. Maybe the research was a little bit old, or they didn't have access to PassiveTotal. I want to see all of the infrastructure that links together. So they would go through and start running these queries in the system to get additional information. So what we found out was, if we can take that open source intelligence that's out there already, and we can go and have a threat researcher or investigator look at that, we could potentially find a lot more. So then when you read the article from us, you and you're an enterprise customer, we'll give you these extra indicators to jumpstart the investigation even further and make you a little more speedy in the amount of processing that you might have to do. So what we've done is, if you go to our threat intel portal, you can search for articles. Inside there, we have public community indicators. And sometimes when we publish, we'll make them all public. But then if we took somebody else's article and we've done some research and found there's additional indicators in there, we'll publish those as enterprise indicators. So what that allows us to do is, if you started off with that initial article that talked about certain indicators, when we're done with it, we publish, we give you the full aspect of it. So it gives you a lot more information. Now, as this data comes in that we're collecting, either through active and passive means, we're collecting it all ourselves. It's not that it's a feed that we're taking in from somebody. So we understand when we went to the website and we got the full document object model, the cookies, the referral requests, what's coming in and what's going out. So we gather all that data and it goes into our analysis, and the analysis is part of research. Research finds a new way of finding something. They'll create a way of detecting it. They give that to the data scientist. The data scientist plugs it into the machine learning algorithms, and then with that, it scales out so we can find everything. And then we take all that information and we make these different data sets and derived data sets. And some of the derived ones might be, hey, this is blacklisted. Hey, this is a 0 day. This is something that is linking to something that's bad. This is a scam. This reputation of this site is bad. This is spam. But all these things that we create, it gives us the ability to find these things. But what makes us unique is that if you think of your own organizations, and if you were doing a SIM, for example, and you created a rule, it's from that point forward. It doesn't really go back in time. But with RiskIQ, we have the capability to go back in time and do detections. So with that, it's kind of like having the time machine, like from Doc Brown from Back to the Future, where we can actually go through and find, for example, a base 64 encoded cookie value, and then say, well, the data that we had from yesterday, the aggregate data, and the data that we've collected, we merge that together. And when we merge it together, we can apply that filter, that new way of detection, and create a new aggregate. So then we can go back to the beginning and roll it forward and find that information. And that becomes the new thing that you look at every day. And if we apply this over what I just showed you before, this is where the security researchers and the threat intel people, when they make these detections, we can go back and say, okay, did we see it earlier than just now? And we can find those and link them together. So when you look at the cyber kill chain, we're focused everything before the firewall. So when someone starts talking about attacking somebody, or there's credentials or different things in the planning phases in like the deep and dark web, all the way to the point where they're looking at open ports, scanning you, they're setting up infrastructure, they're buying domain names, they're weaponizing that infrastructure, and then the attack goes out. So we're able to find and detect things about 1 to 4 days before it's active. So during the times of the discussion, the compromise, all these areas that are happening in that attack sequence, we can find it before it's inside your organization. And this is where we help people tremendously, is because if you can stop it earlier in the cycle, it's less cost and less impact to the organization. Once it's inside, it's kind of hard. It's almost too late, and your costs will go higher, and your organization can go through a lot of legal problems as well. Now, as things change over time, and we take something down and they move it and bring it up on another piece of infrastructure, the whack-a-mole, we can track it and find it and take it down for you. So we have that capability. So that's one of the nice things that we can do because of our scale. Now, the cool thing is the way that we're able to do this is everyone plays on the same battlefield. We're all on the internet, and with that, there's certain rules and there's signals that everyone puts out. And with these signals, we can do stuff with it. We can collect it. But these same things that we're doing, you need to do internally as well. You need to start collecting these signals. So if something happens, you can go back and see what happened, and then take that internal information and enhance it with RiskIQ to see that outside perspective. and to see all that infrastructure that's involved in that one piece that you saw internally that was coming from the outside and do something with it. So when we look at like a threat actor and a target, okay, so the threat actor is in Brazil and the target is in Canada. From the threat actor just going online, there's an IP address, a net block, autonomous system, internet service provider. And if they were going to do a phishing email, they're going to have to write that email. It's going to have a language in there. We're going to know what service provider, and there'll be some language and date and timestamps, and then it's sent. And as it traverses the internet, you're going to see all of the transit IPs, net blocks, the times, the autonomous systems it's going through, and then it gets to the target. And at the target, it could have HTML code. So when they click on it, it phones back and they can fingerprint the machine. There's a time that they read it, the operating system, they can find out the location of where that person was. And that gives them the capability of seeing all that information. But these are all the signals that are emitted all the time. And if you're collecting them, then you can use them. And so what RiskIQ is doing is going out there and talking to all the things on the internet, the IPv4, and understanding the traffic map of everything there and how it's interconnected and how it's related to each other. So when you have a problem and you see that one indicator, we can tell you that one indicator and then piece it all together to say how it fits in with everything else. So that's from passive DNS, the WHOIS information, the certificates that are associated with IPs and domains, the trackers, the little bits of code that get run to be able to track user experience, things like that. When the threat actor duplicates your websites, they might duplicate your trackers as well. The host pairs, what's going in and going out. So images coming in, scripts that you're running, data that might be going out, the host details, the operating system, the components that are on these systems, the cookies, the hashes that VirusTotal and others might have, the open source intelligence, these are the articles that people are publishing, the full document object model of a website to find all the information, headers, the console logs, open ports, and exposed services. But there's some caveats. Like, you know, if you don't collect it, if you didn't witness it, you don't have the information, you might not have everything. And we can't be everywhere at once. We can't track all the changes all the time. It's only when we go there can we see if something was different. So you need multiple points of proof, and you generally need about 3. So if you have 3 things that make it look suspicious, it's probably really bad. So please bear that in mind, is that as you go through, you need multiple points to be able to really define if something's good or bad. And what these workshops are trying to do is to show you how to train your eyes and your brain that if you see certain things, these combinations or this number of things that you've seen are bad. So you can determine what's good and what's bad over time. So you can apply these same tactics that we're doing internally so you can understand what's happening, so you can uncover the techniques and procedures that these threat actors are using and leverage that information to help you in your organizations. So you can up your game of investigations by upping your game of collection internally and leverage that information with RiskIQ and other solutions to give you that big information. So with that, that's all the base background to get you guys ready so we can start going through and talking about this. Jordan, if you can you make yourself presenter and I'll let you run through your research that you and Adam did.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to be talking about research we did on LogoKit, which is a simple modularized adaptable fish kit. Most of the breakdown of that, the technical stuff Adam did, come in for the after deep dive, putting together indicators tied to the kit, tied to some identities of people that we think are involved, and just kind of unraveling that knot of infrastructure. So with that, we'll talk We're going to start off with a little bit about the kit itself, about the way the fish works, and then we'll get into the actors and the infrastructure related to them. Adam?
All right, so in kind of tying back to what Benjamin was talking about with our DOM collection or document object model collection, one of the things that we had noticed was a phishing page that looked very similar to a client login portal. In this case, it even had their logo pulled down onto the phishing setup itself, making it look like, well, maybe this is our login portal after all. After reviewing it, we found a bunch of code sections in it that led us to implementing a few detections for tracking it. Again, in some areas, it is a generic login portal. In some cases, it varies to Office 365 pretext, but the actors really like to pull down the logo of a company. So in this example here, we have a little snippet, and this is what the phishing pretext or delivery URL will look like in a unsuspecting victim's inbox. So in this case, we can see phishing site, login.html, we see a hash, and then the victim@company.com. So LogoKit itself will pull that company domain, pull the logo from a service such as Clearbit, which is a legitimate logo hosting site, and then from there, embed that into the document object model to make it look like a generic login page. So Jordan, if you could advance it one slide. So this is what an example of a compiled fish kit of LogoKit looks like. So we can see in this case, we entered a fake RiskIQ email. It pulled down our logo from Clearbit, extracted the RiskIQ section of our domain. So it would just look like a generic RiskIQ login portal. We see that it also auto-filled our username into an email field and set it to disabled. This is a little more on the psychological side of it because it makes it look like to an unsuspecting person, hey, I've gone to this website before, or maybe it's a corporate domain owned copy of this. Again, just to fake out users a little bit more and think, oh, I don't have to enter it. I just need to enter my password. I can proceed to the page or to the content, and then we can go on from there. Jordan, if you can advance one more slide. So this little snippet, and this is a very common AJAX request that's in a lot of phishing kits, but this one is particular to LogoKit and how it also pulls the data from the DOM, sends it to a resource, and then your credentials are sent to the attacker. Specifically, when LogoKit is being hosted on legitimate infrastructure, and that's something we've noticed with LogoKit is the attackers will host it on something like Google's document storage or object storage, Yandex Cloud, as well as things like Oracle's object storage. Even DigitalOcean Spaces has been targeted by these actors. And this is to subvert some of the email filtering as well as network filtering because it looks like a legitimate service. Now, in these AJAX requests, we can see that there's a URL field in there. In this case, it has to go to an external source. This was pulled from a DigitalOcean hosted fish kit because object storage can't have running PHP to send emails across. So in this case, the actor needs to rely on an external website. In some cases, that's a compromised WordPress website or another compromised website of their choosing, basically. Again, a lot of the variants are hosted on object storage, making it very difficult in some cases to block these.
Hey, Adam, something I was wondering about, is this AJAX request pretty unique to phishing kits, or like do we see it also used by some legitimate service? Or
so in some legitimate services, we'll see it in some legitimate services doing some like backend API request, and it's a common string to do an AJAX request. Sometimes a get based one, usually if you're doing some kind of API, sometimes post. Again, it's a very big one used by phishing kits as well because it's so simple to implement.
So you can couple it with some other intel info to like decide that this is a malicious thing. We can't just flag this and say, okay, that's a malicious request going on.
Correct. And in some cases, a lot of the content that was observed in LogoKit variants, as well as our main generic login portal that we showed, was that they do have some repetitive strings that the attackers used for either copying and pasting or into other variants of their LogoKit.
So Adam,
Cool.
when we first found this, we're detecting phishing all the time. What made this one different in that it caught your eye to say we need to look at the code behind like the fish that was out there?
So one of the first things that kind of made us interested in this was this odd usage of object storage hosting. In many cases, you'll see compromised WordPress websites hosting phishing kits, kind of generic fake-looking domains that are things like office-login-authorization.com. Some subtle variances of that. But in this case, we started observing a lot of domains that were associated with legitimate object hosting. And then that was kind of our interesting facet into, there's something weird going on here.
Yeah. And also, I think we're focusing more on producing threat intel, so we'll be doing more of this diving into this sort of data around this stuff and producing content for people to consume. And with that, we're going to do our deep dive on the actors, the infrastructure, the other activities that we were able to uncover based on Adam's research, and then pivoting out from there. So, overview of the actors. We believe they've been operating since at least 2015, might have been earlier than that. That's sort of where we pegged their earliest activities that we've been able to find or seen other people reference. There's multiple actors. They advertise on websites that they own. They're on WhatsApp, Telegram, social media sites, Black Hat forums, and they sell a wide range of products and services related to phishing and other malicious activity. They're distributing malicious documents, info stealing malware. They sell financial and personal data. They provide bulletproof hosting and several other services and products in that same campaign. While we were looking at the actual phishing kit, Adam noticed recurring naming schemes in some URLs that compromise sites where the kit was being hosted. So these are all blacked out because they're victim domains, but they're hosting particular versions of LogoKit. Adobe RD28, I think you were telling me that refers to the type of fish it is. So this will be an Adobe login page. And also the RD28 has something to do with the versioning of the kit itself. Is that right?
Yep. So anytime there's a prefix, it typically uses like Adobe-RD28. In some cases, it'll be something like Outlook or Office 365 dash, and then there's always a little kind of suffix at the end of it every time there's a LogoKit. In most cases.
Mm-hmm. So using that, we're able to find an actual sample of the kit. This is supposed to be on our WordPress site. So we've got the Adobe RD28 directory and then Adobe reload.zip. I believe the zip contains the fish kit. So we're able to download that, take it apart, and within the compressed fish kit itself, there's a file that's named email.php. That contains an email address, which was sort of the start of our filling out fudpages@gmail.com. So you don't want to keep in mind FUD, it comes back a lot. And we'll get into what that means in a little bit. So here we can see this is PassiveTotal. So we're actually able to extract or find a name that is also in the PHP emailer section of the fish kit. We tied this name to this Telegram user ID, and as well as several different web pages and various messaging platforms. The Telegram user ID, fun page, obviously that goes with the previous email, appears on a couple of websites, fudscampages.com and fudpage.ru. And Adam, I think this is yours.
So kind of pivoting onto the websites we discovered in the Telegram ID search is we see this constant referral to FUD or fully undetected. We see in this case, we found this fudscampages.com. Again, the term FUD is in most of their product names. We found a lot of their bulletproof hosting, document exploit systems, as well as botnet access. And in some cases, a little bit of like anti-bot generation panels. So in other words, phishing kits that have IP addresses of known research companies and they block them. Kind of following on that, one of the things that we noticed is most of the website templates have all these different ways to contact the sellers. So in this case, we can see that FUD page was listed on this page as a Telegram contact. We see a WhatsApp contact, an ICQ contact, and a Skype contact for FUD pages with a Z at gmail.com.
Yeah, that's how you know it's cool. It's kind of easy.
So a full service app that you can contact them and buy whatever you needed to, so you can deploy this and start using it to steal from people.
Oh, definitely. Their marketing support is very good. They even have a live chat in most of their web pages where you can get active support on any of their products.
Oh God.
It's actually got the same name that we saw in the fish kit pops up. It says, hey, I'm this guy, can I help you? So
Was this expensive to buy? This
I don't know if we
It
had
depends on the
prices right here. It says like $20 for something. But no,
some of them it varies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to vary on what you're buying, right? Or what. Maybe if you're subscribing into something or getting a license.
Yeah, and
So,
more advanced ones, like their Office 365 phishing ones, those ones are usually anywhere between $100 and $300. So it really depends on the pretext and kind of the overall dev time that they spend on it, which is, it's interesting to always see that that's always the case in legitimate software companies, and it's even attackers do it.
Wow.
So yeah, this is fudpage.ru, one of the websites that we saw associated with that Telegram account, and you can see it's pretty similar to the last one. They seem to be kind of built from probably a template, some variations. So this one still has like several different communication channels. There's a Jabber account. Fud pages at exploit.im. Yeah, very similar, and they have like a bunch of these websites out there. Not entirely sure why they need so many, but it seems like they've stood up a lot over the years.
And I just for everybody to know, in the chat, I've been throwing some of these URLs for PassiveTotal for these searches, so you can see them yourselves.
So, that Telegram ID, FUD page, in PassiveTotal, we refer to these kind of things as trackers. We have them for several different things. Telegram's one, YouTube channels are another one. It's just a way of seeing where particular like user accounts or different sort of indicators appear on what websites. So this one, we've got a YouTube channel that has appeared on fudpage.ru, FUD scam pages, fudscampage.com. We go look at that YouTube account. This is actually, it uses the same name that we saw in the PHP files from the fish kit. And it has a bunch of sort of promotional videos about Amazon, SMTP, creator, inbox redirect script for super mailer, stuff along those lines. So this is another advertising avenue that they use.
So when you go through and you find these like YouTube things, how did you determine that they had a YouTube channel? What were some of the things that you do in research to find those connections?
Oh, well, yeah. So, I mean, we searched basically for the name that we saw. in the fish kit, it kind of popped up. It's on Telegram, this Telegram user ID. So we found these web pages by plugging the user ID into PassiveTotal, and then you click on those web pages in PassiveTotal, and it shows you more of those trackers. So like, if I click on foodscanpages.com, it'll pop up and say this YouTube account is on that website. So I click the YouTube account, I can see where else it is. And so we got another page out of that. There's a little more, I think more of this later on, but it's just one of the things about PassiveTotal that I really like to use a lot is these kind of trackers. I don't think we have any Google Analytics account IDs in this one, but that's another great one for tying together a lot of different infrastructure. Because Google Analytics accounts are used by some actors for tracking stuff going on their websites. And I've used it pretty extensively in other research that I've done. And the YouTube one can be especially interesting, especially for stuff like this, because then you get to see like what they're doing on YouTube and the kind of like advertising that they're putting out there.
Did they show their faces or just their voices when they do their YouTube, or just text?
A lot of times they don't. We'll get more into YouTube stuff later, but a lot of like they don't even talk. They'll just type stuff.
Okay.
And they just yeah. Usually not. I have found videos of other actors for other things I was looking at where they weren't. But anyway, so we also found this Twitter handle, Fresh Spam Tools D. It's been active since January 2015. It stopped being active in November 2017. The name that appears on it is Saeem Raza. Saeem is actually Urdu for handsome. So handsome Raza is a fake name. The Twitter account advertises a whole bunch of different products and services.
So building on that and just their very prolific advertising experiences and campaigns that they're offering. In this case, we saw that freshspamtools.com was being advertised, and if you wanted, you could buy a Visa member fish, or Visa member login fish, or Visa portal login. We found that Twitter account had actively advertised, mostly in some cases, financial-oriented phishing pages for that Fresh Spam Tools domain, as well as fudtools.com.
Yeah, so this, you see here also a YouTube account, Saeem.Raza786. So another indicator that we can use.
So with this, if you compromise the website, you can put this in here to capture the credit information. Is that what you're saying? This particular.
So this would be it's a financial phishing page. It could be hosted on a compromised site, but this is like another form of a phishing hit.
Okay.
It's not the same as a skimmer. We've seen skimmers using stuff like this to steal credit card information, but that's I don't believe what's going on here.
Okay.
So one of the other things that we saw on this Twitter account was that aside from advertising their phishing services, it was also used to advise users or buyers if domains had been blocked by third parties, or I guess taken down in the nice way to put it. So in this case, we found that the Saeem Raza account was advertising that their newest domain was fudtool.ru. Again, it's interesting to see just how much these accounts do advertise. So again, it's everything from all their phishing services to some of their document exploits, and they're very prolific about their advertising.
Yeah, they're not hiding what they're doing at all. So the name Saeem Raza we're able to take and do some further digging on. It's connected to a bunch of different web pages, user accounts, messaging platforms, social media sites, message boards, a lot like some of the other stuff that we saw earlier. the Telegram, another Telegram account, xbugs official, is connected to Sayed Raza's name. It appears in this Telegram group, Black Hat, aka @IncredibleHazard, as the contact info. There's a message in that open group that directly connects xbugs to Sayed Raza. You can see here they're selling banking logs, full Z, which is slang term for everything you need to all the payment information for the person. So like their shipping address, name, birth date, social security number, credit card data.
So with this LogoKit, if someone was sent this an email, it would put all these things in, and then with these tools, it would send out the data. Was the data going back to LogoKit people or to the threat actors who rented the tool?
The fish kit is the product here. So they're selling the kit that they made, and then people are using that to fish stuff. But they're also doing like lots of other stuff. So it depends. Like I would assume that they're doing their own fishing, but I think they're making a lot more money selling the kit itself. And they're also selling a bunch of other stuff. Like we do see them payment.
And just to add to that, even one of the services that they had advertised in their website was their FUD links services, which that's actually what their service that they provide for hosting the content on things like DigitalOcean Spaces. So for a fee, they'll set you up with that, and then you can upload your content or have your content uploaded, and then the link will be generated for you, and then you can distribute that to your potential targets. So they, I said they do advertise and have a lot of products tied into LogoKit, but again, we kind of found that there's this whole other swath of illicit activities and cybercrime that they were doing.
Yeah, and some more, posting advertising stuff recently. Posted links back to the Telegram group on forums like cracked.to, under the username xbugs, prtship.net, username Black Hat Arab. So just more of their prolific advertising that they're doing. There's a 2015 article that we found from Krebs about a phishing group connected to manipulators.com. So this manipulators team likes to use a domain name service from another blatantly fraudulent service called freshspamtools.eu, which is pretty familiar to us based on that Twitter ID and some of the other infrastructure that we've seen. It's a scammer-friendly service offered by a fellow Pakistani that also conveniently sells phishing toolkits targeting a number of popular brands. I believe that the manipulators.com is actually directly, it's the same actor group, using their own sort of DNS services in this case.
So the bulletproof hosting that they're advertising means that it's not going to come down. It's going to stay up. Is that basically what that means?
They're going to do everything that they can to make sure that your service is not interrupted. And there's a bunch of different ways they do that. They host stuff across a bunch of different providers. There's like fast flux so that you're not staying on the same IPs for very long. These guys are providing their own DNS services, and I think we're going to get a little bit into that in just a few slides. So yeah, they're just trying to prevent takedowns from happening so that you don't stop making money when someone finds your stuff. So freshspamtools.eu is no longer active, but in 2015 we know it was controlled by async actors. There's a series of YouTube videos, again, another YouTube account from 2015 referencing this domain, lists an ICQ account and a Yahoo email address, saying.raza786@yahoo.com, which is tied to a Twitter account. And there's another name here, Rizwan Shah. and those accounts actually match tweets from Fresh Spam Tools.
And following on the YouTube videos that we had shown, a lot of them point to freshspamtools.com, which was also mentioned by that same Twitter user. In this case, following through the videos, we also see that there's this gamer man D at yahoo.com, dreamwebhacker at Yahoo, and private tools 26 at yahoo.com. And again, this was just in more of their YouTube video content advertising a lot of their services. So in kind of building on what Jordan had mentioned, we noted that a lot of these actors are using their own name servers, or this particular group of actors is using their own name servers. So we saw freshspamtools.eu as a name server hosting 67 domains between January 2015 and February of 2016. Pivoting on that information, we also noticed this vservicesi.com hosting approximately 862 domains between August 2017 and March 2019, and the subkumalum.com, I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation on that, with 473 domains between October 2018 and September 2019. And again, that particular domain had been observed as aggressively targeting Canadian financial institutions through email and SMS phishing.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're not sure how many of those of the domains that are using these name servers belong to the LogoKit actors, or else are people paying for services from them. And so, like, a lot of these domains, these 473 type of this one, are these aggressive sort of Canadian financial institution phish pages.
But you're saying that a lot of these domains from these name servers have been associated with bad, but you don't know to the full extent of how many are truly bad, correct?
No, I mean, they're all bad. What
Okay.
I'm saying is these may be the LogoKit actors themselves that are operating the domains that are tied to the name servers, or they may be people that are paying for services for DNS.
That's always the hard part when when we're tracking groups that are, in this case, they sell you the option to host it yourself, or the option that they'll host it for you on bulletproof infrastructure.
Okay.
Right. So, and sort of returning to our PassiveTotal data, there's a whois organization name, FundTool. We were able to connect that to another 228 domains. That's, again, targeting, or was targeting, citizens of the UK and Canada, such as Canada Revenue Agency Refund.com. This is a crawl, RiskIQ crawl from 2018, and they're just trying to get you to give up your financial information with a lure that says you're up for a tax refund. And pretty much the same thing here. This is also tied to that FundTool, who is organizing tax refund dvla.com. This one is mimicking the UK government.
Yeah, it shows up like 235 entries for that, and over 484 historic ones. So yeah, it's pretty big.
Right. In January of 2020, the LogoKit actors registered saimnameserver.com. That domain's been a name server for 908 domains since that time, and I believe it continues to operate, actually. Most of these domains are on .ru, TLD, there's several .com, .info names, but they all seem to be engaged in similar like phishing activity, other malicious stuff going on. And this is just a graph to sort of show the timeline of when the name servers were in use and kind of a relative how many domains are they associated with.
So kind of building on the bulletproof hosting concept of this and using some PT data, we noticed that looking through some of the domains that we looked through, that most of them were hidden behind Cloudflare, and that was usually attackers use that as a kind of first line of defense to hide their origin IP addresses. I'm sure many threat analysts have run across that, where you'll find a malicious domain and boom, it goes to a Cloudflare IP. There are some ways to get the IP through misconfigurations. In this case, because we had historical DNS data attached to PT, we were able to find it pointing to a server in France, and then all of a sudden it went behind Cloudflare. So this slip up or misconfiguration allowed us to see a dedicated IP address that was hosting several FUD-oriented websites, as well as some kind of more phishing-esque related websites. And again, hidden behind Cloudflare, but that misconfiguration was visible through historical data.
Sorry about that mouse.
You're fine.
Yeah, and you see these domains here. These are very similar. They're basically shop websites like we saw earlier, like FunScan, funpage.ru. Same template and everything. So, just to sum up, LogoKit, it's one part of a many-headed illicit online business. Some intel I came across after we published this points to these actors being really fabulously wealthy. They've been at this since at least 2015 and have made a ridiculous amount of money at it. So the info gathered here shows LogoKit actors have aggressively promoted and supported their various products and services through many different channels for several years. RiskIQ phishing allowed us to take part of a URL tied to the phishing kit and use it to discover a sample of that kit. So we're able to use RiskIQ data and open source info to make connections between the kit and various domains, websites, and accounts controlled by these actors, and pivot out from there, discover further infrastructure related to our use of their services since 2015. And LogKit is still very active, still really aggressive, as are people that created it.
So Jordan, could you go to the article in the threat portal, or do you want me to bring that up? I just want to show people how they can see it and the indicators that are there. Because it's pretty spectacular, and you can download these indicators. So what could somebody do with those indicators to help protect their organization that you guys published?
Sorry, what was that?
Is there anything an organization can do with those indicators that were published in the article to help protect their users?
So yeah, I mean, well, there's I was thinking the URL, Adobe RD28. You can also obviously educate your users based on what we've found here in terms of the phishing kit to sort of be on the lookout for pages that look like that.
And one of the big things too is, again, looking for common email pretexts that look like potential corporate logins, where the URL is pointing to what looks like a legitimate login service, or it might be something like, your corporate domain or authorization-login.s3.amazon AWS, followed by, what looks like just an HTML file and your email. So things like training users to be on the lookout for potentially malicious URLs. So common kind of security awareness training measures, as well as adding things to email spam filtering, such as looking for emails with the user's email embedded into the email itself. So looking for that kind of common string that we showed on the first LogoKit slide. That one is, again, another potential. And a lot of the indicators can be used also from a threat hunting perspective of kind of getting more acquainted to some of these illicit services where an organization, they sell this kit, it's being actively used, but then they also provide all these other larger services, again, like document exploit delivery.
Cool. So Jordan, I'll make myself presenter, and
Sure.
I'll show my screen. So let me make presenter and show my screen. So what I've done is I've logged into the threat portal, and from the threat portal, one of the first articles, because this was just published last week, this updated one where you didn't talk about like what the threat actor was doing, you went into the deep dive into the infrastructure. And if we take a look at this, pretty much what we've covered today is highlighted here in the article to help you out. Now, there are public indicators, okay, so these are ones that were other people have published, talked about, and then we have the RiskIQ indicators, and there's over 1,000 of them. So if you look at some of these, there's domains that are involved. So if there are certain domains that are hosting this bad material, you can take those and use those and block people. So you can download these indicators and use them internally to help protect your organization. Also, what Jordan had mentioned, remember the naming convention. So if you have a content filtering, that if you have this Adobe-R28 or those types of things, you can look for those, and if you see them, those are indicators that you can potentially, block people from going to. But the hard thing as well is that a lot of people aren't really using the corporate infrastructure where these tools are deployed. So you need to really educate the users because they're working from home and going out directly and not having those that corporate infrastructure that's blocking a lot of this type of traffic. So we see an uptick in these types of things because you're working from home. And so you need to really understand what's out there. And so this is why I wanted to have Jordan and Adam come, because it's great to get their perspective. And I want to make sure that if there's any questions from anybody on the line, that you ask them now, because it's very rare that you actually get to speak to the people that write these articles and ask them questions about why they did something, or can you tell me more about this or that? So Barrett, are there any questions that are coming in from anyone?
Yeah, we've a bunch of questions, Benjamin. One of the questions was earlier on in the presentation, we noticed the LogoKit was easily visible in the URL. Could it be hidden?
So in that instance, that one was just a self-hosted variant of the kit that we had. So we just called it LogoKit just for our own internal naming scheme. In some cases, again, you'll see that kind of hash with the email. Sometimes the attackers will send you a kind of even more generic phishing page, so it won't include your email. And in some cases, that's to subvert email filtering, again, on top of their measures that they're already taking. So again, it really depends on how the attackers have formatted their URLs. So you see some common tactics where they'll base64 encode it, or they'll URL encode it and just make everything % followed by the hex number or hexadecimal value. So again, you'll see some common phishing tactics using these URLs. But again, to answer the question, in that case, it was just from our testing.
Gotcha. Thanks, Adam.
So I'm looking, there's some other questions in there. Say, how fast do we see the attackers creating new infrastructure for these phishing attacks?
So in terms of the actors themselves creating new phishing pages, some of the websites, and they actually vary on all of their owned infrastructure. In some cases, it's every few months. In some cases, it's every few weeks. We've seen ones where it'll be 2 to 3 years in some cases that they've posted, but they keep the infrastructure alive. In terms of actors, I guess other actors who have purchased this or have found copies of it and are distributing it, I just checked even today, and in the last 7 days, we've seen about 125 phishing campaigns every day. So we're already past 700. So again, figure about an average of 100-ish domains a day that we're seeing. So it's very prolific.
So when we see like a phish, we put it on our blacklist, right? We'll blacklist it. And then once we blacklist it, Google and Microsoft will take our blacklist, put it in production within like 10 to 15 minutes, that they update from ours and put it into production. So then 95% of the world's browsers can't get there because you get that red pop-up saying don't go there. Now, if someone's a customer and they're using RiskIQ for like brand protection, if their brand is being phished, we will then do the takedown. Is that kind of what happens? Or is there any other thing? Do we notify the registrars or those hosting providers when we see these phish, or we just block it and the blacklist takes care of it?
I mean, we might do that sometimes. And really, the main takedown stuff is a client service, because otherwise, like Adam just said, hundreds of them a day, and we can't, like, that would be a full-time job for us, like reporting to different registrars for takedowns, especially ones that don't care. So it's really often a difficult, long process.
Right. But with that by putting it on our blacklist and having that go all the time.
Yeah, that's our most kind of right now our most effective means of disrupting.
Yeah. So it's cost them, we burn their infrastructure and they're blacklisted, so they have to move. So it costs them money and time to be able to do that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the questions. Are there any other ones before we continue and go into the next section?
I saw one that says I manage SecOps for IT MSP. They're asking about leveraging RiskIQ to investigate per client basis. When I was at a SOC, we used PassiveTotal a lot. It's evolved a lot since then to investigate indicators of alerts. So I would say you're going to want to take your output from whatever appliances you're monitoring, or firewalls if it's creating alerts. Take those, plug them into PT, and use our data to determine or help you determine maliciousness, or try to. And then if you want to take it further, you can pivot through based on the indicators that you might see that might attach to other stuff. You might not go anywhere, but we have a lot of data, and a lot of times you'll be able to use it pretty successfully.
Right. There was a question that came up about typo squatting domains and things like that. So if you're a customer where we're doing brand protection, we're looking at your organization and all the domains and everything you have. Typo squatted domains could be taken down if they show that they could be used for trying to take business or hurt your business in some way. We actually have lawyers that can actually help do those takedown requests. So when we work with the registrars, we already have direct relationships with a lot of them. So then when we see something, we can send it directly into their system. So from the time that we see it to taking down, it's like 1 to 3 days that something will go down. And then if somebody refuses to do it, we have the ability to do the legal means for you to take those actions for you. So we have that ability. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So with that, what we're going to do is I'm going to go into the next phase, which we're going to talk about and walk through an investigation. Let me bring up my slides real quick.
Yeah. And I think Adam and I are going to go ahead and drop off. That's all right, Ben?
No problem. So, hey, thank you both for coming today. Please make sure when you exit, you leave and don't kill it. Otherwise, it will kill the webinar. Okay?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Benjamin.
Thank you both of you for taking time out to join us today.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for taking the time to listen to us. It's really gratifying when people want to hear about our stuff. So really appreciate it.
You guys did awesome. I love it. This is what I live for, to be able to help the world with the information that you're figuring out and helping organizations protect themselves.
Oh, see ya.
See ya. So if we take a look at the next one, we're going to start off with a known good domain and do an investigation. Now, I have a caveat to tell you, okay? What we're doing is we're going to be looking at real things. RiskIQ has real data. It's not canned data. The exercises that we do are real. So you need to have safeguards in place. Don't go to these websites directly. you need to protect yourself and your organization. So everything that we're going to do, we're going to use a tool that will go out and touch these bad things and gather data, and we're going to view it through the tools. Okay, we're not going there directly, and we're doing this on purpose because I don't want anything bad to happen to your machines and then potentially yourself or your organizations. So use your judgment, and that's why we try to defang all the stuff so then you don't go there, or I submit the queries that we're going to be doing into the chat. And the reason why I do that is so you have them, so you can see exactly what we're going to do. So here's a scenario, and the scenario I'm coming up with is something that happened to me when I ran network operations and all the Windows web servers. So let's say, for example, you're working at candlesdirect.com and you're an incident responder, and your CEO found out that, hey, on around January 21st, a couple payment card processing organizations said, hey, there's been some fraudulent activity after people went to your website, and you were blacklisted. They blacklisted your organization. So you got on the Google Safe Browsing list that you weren't doing business. And in this day and age, there's not a lot of foot traffic business. It's online. So if you're not online, you're not making money for your organization. So your organization decided we need to be back online as quickly as possible. So they re-imaged the machines or reverted back to a previous image and got back online. So now that that happened, you need to do your investigation, okay? So there's a couple questions I'm gonna bring up real quick. I'm just gonna stop for a second. I'm gonna fire up my my questions real quick. Okay. So I want to make sure that I want you to see if you determine if you were compromised or not. Okay. You're going to determine, you know, what IPs are involved. So I'm just going to copy these. Okay. And I'm going to put this into the chat. Okay. So give me a question. Give me a second. Go into the chat. So here are the questions that we're going to answer today. And I am going to bring up the tools that we're going to use and some of the initial queries that we're going to run. Okay, so 1 second. Pasting those in so you have them all. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to go back to my slides and we're going to start. Okay, so the big thing is you don't have a machine to look at. It's been destroyed. There's no backup of it. You can't go back and look at it. But you're tasked with determining, hey, were you really compromised or not after the fact? And you need to determine, you know, what IPs and domains were involved. And then you need to also see if there are any other victims. Do you have any other partners that are involved? Are they same industry? You need to be able to come up with that. And they want you to produce evidence to say, if we were compromised, how can you show that we were, and what evidence do you have? And this actually happened to me before at an organization, and I was able to piece stuff together, and they go, how did you do this? So we're going to do it together. Now, if there's somebody that wants to volunteer and we can do this together, we'll unmute your mic and we can actually walk through this, and we can do this investigation together where you can ask questions and I can actually show you how we do this. So Barrett, please let me know if anyone wants to volunteer. If you do, please put your name in the chat and say, I'd like to do this, and we'll unmute you and we'll walk through this together, and you'll actually be able to do this. And we also have Orr on here as well to keep me honest. He's one of our solution architects and a Magecart guru with a skimmers. So he'll make sure that what I say is correct and accurate, and if not, he'll speak up and correct me. And if I can't answer something, I know he will be able to. Okay. Anyone's volunteering?
Folks seem to be a little shy today, Benjamin.
No worries.
throw out any volunteers will hook you up with a promo code for extended enterprise access too. So don't be shy.
You want a 30-day enterprise trial? Let us know. Okay, I'll give it 5 more seconds and then I'll kick it off. So we have that first initial query, okay? Okay, so we'll start. So the first thing you would want to do as a threat investigator, if your organization is down and you're not doing business, you want to verify, hey, are you up or down? And an easy way to do that is you can go to Google Safe Browsing, the transparency report. So if I come here, I'm just going to erase this real quick. And bring it up. Give me a quick second so you can see how it works. So if you're in here, you can click through here. I have it already listed here. So give me a quick second. Important website. So from here, if we take a look at this, I can type in any domain and it will go search to see if they're up or down, or if it's suspicious or malicious, it will let me know. So if I put in Candles Direct and I search, it will tell me as of right now, we're okay. It doesn't go back in time and tell me this site was blocked in the past. It's only from this point we know if it's okay or not. And so now we know didn't detect anything. But this type of skimmer that's happening, it's not really in the system. It's being called out through a script someplace else. So when you examine the code, you might not see it, and it might only be when you're checking out it happens, and only when certain things happen. So these types of like Google Safe Browsing check and things like that might not detect it. But if RiskIQ detects it and we throw it on our blacklist, then this would see it. But this site directly might not have the capabilities of understanding that there was a real problem. But we were told that, hey, back in January, there was a problem with Candles Direct, and you have PassiveTotal, and you're going to now use PassiveTotal to go back in time and see, you know, what happened, what did anything change, was there anything new, and piece those things together. So when we take a look, we see the analyst insights, and the analyst insights give you some history, some information about what's happening, and we can see that, hey, it's a resolving blacklist. Means that it was blacklisted and it got off blacklist and maybe went back on, but in the past it was blacklisted. There's 3 IP addresses, 17, there's new subdomains 17 days ago. It's registered, it resolves, it's not an Alexa 100,000, and it was just crawled 2 days ago, okay? Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see filters. This is called the heat map for the people that are new to PassiveTotal. And this represents 6 months worth of time. And during these 6 months, you'll see every single day what has changed. So for example, if there's a little triangle in the corner, means that something new has been seen on that day. If there's a curve on the bottom of one of the squares here, that means it's the end of the month. If there's a curve on the top, that's the beginning of the month. And we can filter the results of what we see on the screen by selecting one or more squares. So if I select one square and then I hold my shift key down and I select another one, it will give me that range and it will filter to show me those results. So if there's 10 years worth of history and I only want to see the last month or the last week, I can do that. I can filter the results. And down here is all the data that we've collected over time. So I can actually go back to a long time ago and click, and that will refresh and grab that 6-month window of time and show it to me. Or if I want to go back and see what's happening right now, I can go back to the very end. I click and it sets me back up. Or I can refresh, and when I refresh, it will refresh the page and let me see everything. So it gives me that capability of filtering the results down to show me just a particular period of time or all the values. And then on the left-hand side, I can filter even more. And for example, you see the sources here. So passive DNS, we can't be everywhere all the time. So we have our sensors to collect data, but we also partner with other passive DNS collectors, and we share our data with them and they share it with us. So you can see, for example, this one IP is in Great Britain, and you can see all the different organizations that saw that IP address on that domain during this time period when it was first seen and last seen. And over here on the filters, if I click on the green checkbox, this little checkbox here, it turns green, and that will filter to show those things. If I didn't want to see something, I can click on the X and it will be removed from the list. Now, one thing that you might see when we go through and look at some of these examples, you might see non-routable IP addresses, and you're thinking, you guys are scanning the internet, everything should be routable. How do you see a non-routable IP? And the reason why we see those is when we go to, for example, a name server or a DNS server, we will grab all of the domains and IPs that are registered in there. And sometimes it's parked. It might have a loopback address, or it might be an internal address. And then that loopback address might go public for a day or two and then go back to a loopback. So think of like threat actor stages, buys a domain, stages it, doesn't make it public, then turns it public for a little bit and then turns it back. So if we look at this legend here, you'll notice that blue means it was all routable. If it was gray, it would mean that it's non-routable. And you see this little X means that there's certain periods on this data bar down below that we didn't have any collection during that time. It wasn't online. And then you might see something where it's mixed. If it's mixed, it would be green, which would be routable and non-routable at the same day. So that's an indicator that you need to look at when we're doing these investigations. But this is supposed to be your own website. So now let's go through and let's try to see what we can do to piece this together. And this was real. And once we find it, there are other actors out there that have been compromised by this threat actor group. But we're going to go through one, but I'm going to show you how to look for other victims, and then you can go look at that. So when we find these, we put them on the blacklist. We try to notify the organizations we can, but this one is no longer active, and we're going to go through and take a look. So if we go and look at your own organization, a good place to start is to look at the host pairs. And what the host pairs are, excuse me, these are all the different ways that things have come in and out of the website. So if we look here, we see causes. There's a script. There's an image. So for example, if I'm pulling an image from someplace, if I'm writing a script, if I'm looking at Google Analytics, maybe I'm a Google Tag Manager, I'm writing a script from there to send data back to them. So I pull down the script and it runs and it sends data back. So it might be a redirect. There might be lots of things happening. So what we're going to do is with these skimmers, the way that they work is that there's a script that gets added inside of your website. And it might be that they directly went in and added the script, or they compromise something that you rely upon in your organization. So for example, it might be a payment card processor. If I can go and put that script at that third party that you rely upon, then when your organization pulls up the legitimate thing, it also pulls up the bad stuff. Or you had some vulnerability because you're running an old version of a component, some sort of like Magento, you might NextGen, there might be Apache, there might be something that you're running that that can be easily compromised, and the threat actor is compromising the website and adding their little bit of code to your website. And then when it loads, that piece comes in. Now with these threat actors, sometimes there might be a 2 or 3 stage script. The first one just goes and says, check for these fields on the page. And then another one might say, when you go to the checkout and you're going to hit submit, now do this other script and grab the data. So there might be different stages. So we're going to go through and look at that. So if we look here and I look at scripts, Okay, so now I'm looking at all the scripts that are being executed from Candles Direct, and we see a first and a last date here. So if we go through and we look, we see Google Tag Manager, that's normal. Okay, I see Google Ad Service. I'm going down, I'm still Connect, I'm seeing Facebook, Google Dash Analytics, Candles Direct. Okay, so now I'm seeing like a jQuery.su, a Pro Cloudflare. So maybe that sounds legitimate, but I'm not sure. So what we want to do is we want to like start looking at some of these domains here. And the first one we're going to look at is this jQuery.su. So there's two different ways that you can perform a search, a pivot search we call it, when you see data and you want to go to the next connected asset that we see in infrastructure. So I can either click on it, and I'll show you this way. Don't do it just yet, but I'm going to click on it, and you'll see that it leaves like a breadcrumb of where it comes from. Okay, I'm going to hit back, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to show you another way that we can do it. So the other way is you can right-click and open in another tab, and I like to do it this way. And the reason for that is when you're doing your investigation, and I use Chrome, if I open it up in another tab, I might go down a path and it dead ends. So then I have to go back to the main trunk and go down another branch. So by doing that, it gives me the capability of storing all of those things I've done. And then I can go up to the bookmarks and say bookmark all of my tabs and put them in a folder. So I've saved that research, and I can go back in and open up all those tabs and see them. Okay, so I will open that up in another tab now, and I'm going to open up also this Pro Cloudflare in another tab. Okay, so now that I've done that, we'll look at the first one. So when I take a look at this, over time it's been online, and then it's offline, online, offline, online, offline. So there's this periods of time where it's not working. Also, it says, hey, it was blacklisted 15 days ago. So this is a good indicator. It's around the same time period where, okay, it's been blacklisted. So I go, okay, let me see the host pairs. So by looking at the host pairs from this bad site, I can see other things that are connected to it. So if we take a look at the causes from here, and I'm looking at scripts now, I can see that Candles Direct was reaching out, the parent was reaching out to the child to jQuery.su and pulling in that script. And I can also see some other ones in here. So I can see back on December 5th through January 27th, it was using a script from here. But I don't know what was contained in the script, but I know that there was a script in there, okay? Now, all these other organizations here, storables, different things, and we'll go down and I'm going to extend this so we can see the entire list. You'll see one in here towards, let me see where it is. Flower explosion. I have another use case that I did back in 2019 that was related to flower explosion on the same sort of thing. But this is a way for me to tell that, hey, on December 5th, something changed. Something was added to our website. And where is this located? So if I come in here and I can see where this is, it was in Russia, okay? So there's a lot of it in Russia, China, Great Britain, so it's jumping all around. And if you're an American company, for example, and you're not really doing business over there, you're not hosting over there, you're not using any services from there, it might be a red flag. So this would throw up a red flag to say, oh, I need to analyze this. Okay, so we're gonna look at this jQuery.su as well. Now, the other one, the Pro Cloudflare as well, when I take a look at this, I see it was blacklisted a month ago. So that's also a bad indicator. If we look at the host pairs, I see two different domains associated with it. And one of them was through the 13th of January, and the other one was the 22nd. So this was like an overlap with it. Okay, well, let's go back to the jQuery.su. And I'm going to look at an IP address here. So let's look at this one because that's around the time period The 15th was during that time period. So I'm going to open that up in another tab. So if I take a look at this IP address now, oh, so I see something now. So the two domains that were running scripts on our site were hosted on the same IP address. So if I take a look at this, I see Pro Cloudflare, I see the jQuery.su. So if I go back again, and let's look at the latest one. So let me open that. Now it's that was in Russia. Now let's look at Great Britain. Okay, so now the Great Britain one, I see the same one. So all of these domains are jumping on different IPs now, different time periods. So this, to me, is when we look at those multiple points of proof. So this is now suspicious. So I saw two of them that were malicious. I looked at an IP address that was in Russia, and now I'm seeing all of those same domains now on completely different IP addresses in a different country. So it's now jumping around, but there's a big list of them here. There's 30 of them. And if I went back here now, there's 51 of them here. So this gives me an indication that there might be a lot more infrastructure being associated with this threat actor, okay? So the next thing to think of is, how can I look at the data? How can I understand how RiskIQ said this was blacklisted? How was it bad? How can I see it? Well, we have other modules that we sell, brand protection, others, where we actually will go look at your stuff and find all these things. But I'm going to show you a way that you can do it manually. And this way is going to be using URL Scan.io. So if we go to URL Scan.io, give me 1 second. I'm just going to copy this so I can show you how I did this, okay? Okay, so I'm at URL Scan.io. If I paste something in here and I hit public scan, it's going to go out and look at the website as of right now, as of today. And as of today, it's not compromised. There's no problems. So I'm not going to see anything bad associated with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little search here. And what the search does is allows me to look back in time. So I can come in here and I'll put in one of the domains. I use the procloudflare.com, okay? And I'll search. So this will go back and say, hey, over this period of time, these are all the scans that people have submitted for us to go out and crawl their website. So this is like what RiskIQ is doing, grabbing this data, bringing it in, and this becomes what PassiveTotal shows you in there. But this is kind of the building block. So we see in here, candlesdirect.com a month ago, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this one, okay? So now what's nice about this is I see an image. I see an image of our website. So that's how it looked like last month. Great. I can see all of the IPs and all the information. The place where we're going to go and examine to see what was really there and what it looked like, this is the secret sauce. This is where your investigation, people are going to go, how did you do this? How did you find this out? There is no machine. So we're going to look at the HTTP request that came in. And I'm going to search for Pro Cloudflare, okay? And as soon as I start typing for that, when I do my Command F to see to filter the results on the screen, I see a response. So this, when I click on it, is the actual script. Remember Adam and Jordan talking about the obfuscate. So I don't know what this means. I have no idea. I don't know if it's good or bad. So now I need to take this information and I need to do something with it. I need to put it into some place to decode what was there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it all and I'm going to copy it. And I gave you a link to another website, okay, the JS Deobfuscator, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it in here, okay, the entire script, okay? And I say make it readable, okay? And it's going to go through and it creates, it goes through and figures out how it was encoded, and it unobfuscates the or deobfuscates the information. So from in here, I'm going to copy that, all the results, okay? And there's another website, and Orr showed me this. This was one of the things that when we did a workshop together, he showed me this piece. It was incredible. So if I paste it in here, okay, and I beautify it, now it becomes more of like what we're used to seeing. So I can copy this out and show you. I have it in Text Wrangler. So let me show you the unobfuscated code. So what I did was I opened it up here so we can see more of it. So it's a lot of arrays and different things in here where it goes through and does things. But as we're going through, we're going to see something that will catch your eye. And this is where you're going to know, hey, this isn't good. So if we look at these variables that are right here, I'm looking at number, I'm looking at holder, holder first name, last name, date, month, year, CVV, gate, data, all the expiration date. So this is the credit card information stuff. So this is the when you're checking out and you're putting in all your information and you're submitting, what's actually happening on the site is that Candles Direct has its own checkout thing, and it's fine. There's nothing bad inside of that application other than this link to this bad code. When the user visits the site, the user downloads the document object model, and part of the document object model will be a link to this script that we saw in that URL scan.io. It comes down. So the bad script, along with the good content from the legitimate site, comes down, and they're merged together in the client end user browser. When they go through and they're doing their checkout, everything looks good, and they submit, that submission doesn't go back to, it goes to the Candles Direct, but it gets forked out. The script will take the data and submit it to the bad guy, so the bad guy has it. The last time I looked at this threat actor's code, the way that they were submitting their data to the threat actor was asking for an image. It requests an image file. When the image is requested, the server doesn't have the image, but it's logging all of the bad requests. And it encodes in all of this information that we see here. All this information is encoded in the file name. And it makes this request, and it says, I don't have that image. So if they ever get under like investigation, if somebody went there and said, we know you're stealing this data, they go look, there's no database, there's no information there, but there's a log file, and that log file has all of these requests of files that don't exist that are encoded. But if you know how to decode it, then you can find out everyone's personal identifiable credit card information that's in the request. And so that is what's happening. So this is a way for you to go and do an examination without having direct access to the machine, or it doesn't even exist anymore, okay? Any questions so far, Barrett, that have come in?
Yeah, Benjamin, question about when you're running the scans. Would the threat actors or adversaries be able to see that you're doing a scan?
So these scans are happening all the time. So like RiskIQ is talking to all of the IPs and domains around the world. Google's doing that as well. So there's bots out there all the time going out there and doing these things. So these scans might pull in the script, but it doesn't, unless you're acting like that end user, you might never see it. So because RiskIQ is acting like that user, when they pull down that full document object model, it's pulling that script in. It might not execute, but we see the script. We're not going there directly, so the threat actor doesn't see anything that's unusual. So like if you went there, it would be downloaded to you, and you can view your source and see it if it was an infected website. So you can look at the document object model via like viewing the source in your browser and search for it, and you would find those things listed. But you're not seeing the code. But because we're pulling in, we're also pulling that code and have it. And I'll show you that in a second. So people are submitting things to URLscan.io. We're crawling everything. Google's going out there and indexing all the different pieces. So it's not unusual for that type of traffic to be seen, but potentially they could see that they were scanned, but I don't think it would be really any red flags, because the nature of the internet we all are on is that scans are happening all the time from everybody. Good question. Anything else so far?
A question about more as a consumer. Is there anything that we as consumers can do to protect ourselves or be more vigilant about?
Yes, and this is something that Orr demonstrated the last time we did a workshop. So if you're going to go to a place and order something for the first time, and you're not familiar with it, or if you just want to check, you can actually go through and put it into PassiveTotal and look at the organization, look at the domain, or like when you go to check out, there might be a different domain sometimes. Take that information and search in PassiveTotal. And you can go through and you can look at the same sort of information that we do to look at the scripts. Say, hey, are there any scripts, anything new? Oh, these scripts are from these countries. These scripts are typo squatted. You know, it says Google tag.name, you know, or there's different things you can look at to see if there's anything suspicious. And then you can examine the actual scripts using the techniques I just showed you to say, oh, what is this? So it's a way to check your own purchasing to make sure that you're safeguarding yourself and others. So right now we know that, yes, we were popped. We know that there was a credit card skimmer on there. And we were not only popped once, but twice. There were two separate domains on there. So if we go back now and we look at that jquery.su one, let's see if we can look at that script and see if it's similar or different. So we come back to the place where you search. So I went to URLscan.io and I hit search. So if I put in jquery.su, okay, I can see everywhere that it was listed. And here I see Candles Direct, it was listed, okay? So if I look again here and I look at the HTTP, I can find jQuery, there's 14 of them listed here. Oh, there's a bunch, okay? So I can start looking at these, jQuery.su. Oh, there's one. Okay, so now I found the proper one. So if I select it now, I can come in here, I can copy it, I can go and look at here and delete it out. I'll paste it in, I'll make it readable, I'll copy it, let's go beautify it. Okay, and from here, I'm going to scroll through and see, it looks very similar. Very similar. Here's the array. Oh, and there's that same section again. So it's the same script. So you might have been notified, hey, this jQuery.su is bad, take it out. But they also have that pro Cloudflare in there. So you have to be careful when you're looking at these things. You can't just stop when you find one. In this particular case, there were two. So there were two different scripts on there, or the same script, but two different domains going back to the same IP address, okay? So now what I want us to do is we're gonna go look at some of these other domains that are there and see if we can find out if there's any other victims or who those people are targeting. So that's the next part to go through, okay? And this is how you can practice your skills. So when we do these exercises, because this is real world and these are things that are happening all the time, we're going to go and find things. Now, the bad part about this is because it is live, we might find somebody that's actively being attacked right now. And we try to do our best to notify people when we see something, but because this is live and the data that we're looking at is being updated all the time, we could potentially find somebody that's just been compromised. So just bear that in mind, okay? And we do our best to notify them and we put them on blacklist. So once we find that they have bad code, we blacklist them. and then no one can go to those sites, and those sites go and figure out, oh, no one's being able to access our website. We need to take some action. And then they find out, oh, we've been compromised, and they do it that way as well. But we try to update it immediately in our blacklist when we see a site that's compromised, so they're offline, and then they can take action to put themselves back online. Okay, so let's go back and let's look at the candles direct. Okay, so I'll paste this back in so everyone can start from the same place. So now that we're here, let's go through and let's see what we can do with this and figure out more. So from inside of here, if we filtered on scripts, so remember it's under cause, it will show me all the scripts. And we have this jQuery SU and this Pro Cloudflare. So let's go to the jQuery.su, okay? So now that I have this listed, if I take a look at host pairs and I look at scripts, I can see everywhere that a website other than jQuery.su was referring back to this bad site. And so I can see Candles Direct. There was this this website here. Okay. Now, if we take a look at the IP resolutions, this .84 was during the time period that we saw that there's a problem. But as you can tell, it's changed about every week. It changes. This one was only up for 2 days, and then it changed. And this one's been up for just 5 days. So about almost every week it changes to a new IP address. So let's start on this .84. So if we open this up, we're going to see a bunch of domains in here. And we've already noticed that 2 out of this list were bad. Okay, let's go look to see if there's any other ones that are potentially bad in here. So we have this Google Plus.name, and we have this Google Tag.name. Let's look at this Google Tag.name, because we've all heard about tags in Google. So this is just a weird naming convention. So if I open that up in another tab, let's see what's happening here. So let's look at the host pairs. Okay, and from the host pairs, I'm going to look at scripts. So if I take a look, I see jeans.station.fr, so this is someplace in France, Impact Battery, GPS Nation, Armor-X. So all of these are pulling scripts from here. So I don't know if they're good or bad. Let's start on this one, okay? So I'm going to right click and open up on this one. So this was just blacklisted 6 days ago. So I'm going to open this one up. Okay. And there's over 830 different host pairs in here. So a lot of stuff. So this will take a second to pop up here. And if we look at the scripts, there's 31 different scripts. Okay. And I want to see everything. So I'm going to extend it. Okay. So this was the Google Tag. Google Tag.name. So if I take a look at this, we saw this script from the 27th through the 29th, very short period of time, okay? But because I see some weird things in here as well, and maybe I might want to go back and look to see, hey, is this jQueryinfo.com? I would want to go through and look at all of these as well. So I'm going to look at this one as well, just to see if there's anything funky with this one. Okay, that one is .84. So this looks like it might be part of that list as well. So this was jQuery info. So let's look here. So I'm going to go back to this list and see. There's 51. I'll go to 500. Command F, jQuery info. Yep. So this was popped twice as well. It's associated with the bad. So now let's go find the script and see if it's similar or different. So I'm going to copy this. And I am going to go to, I'm going to go back to the URL scan.io, and I'm going to click on search at the top. Let's look at search. I'm going to paste this in, and we'll see what we found. Okay, I found one about a month ago. That's about when this happened. So let's see. And let's look in here for HTTP, and we were looking for Google tag.name. Nope, that one's not there. jQuery info. Let's look here. jQuery info. Oh, there's jQuery info. Okay, so let's look at the response. Obfuscated. Let's copy it. Let's go and deobfuscate it. Oops. Make it readable. Let's copy it. Let's beautify it. Let's come down and see. Oh, look at this. It looks different. It's slightly different variables, but it's looking for the same stuff. So if we go through and we look at everything from this list of 50 different domains, I suspect we're going to find quite a few that have been compromised. So it's really important to learn these skills on how we did this and what happens, so you can actually look not only for your own organization but for yourself when you're going out there and hunting. So if I looked at what's out there right now, the active ones, this was active jQuery 24 as of just today. So let's look at jQuery 24. Okay, and from here, 11 host pairs. So ArmorX, we saw that on the other one. So these two are probably compromised as well. And this was cleaned up on the 14th. This was cleaned up on January 17th. Any questions?
Benjamin, we had a question about the blacklist. Someone
Sure.
was asking, I've heard about the blacklist a few times now. Is the blacklist publicly available, or is it part of the paid service, and can it be integrated with other content filters?
So very soon we are going to release some modules to PassiveTotal that are going to completely enhance your capabilities that you've never seen before. So right now we have given you the analyst insights, but how would you like it that if you search for something and we can quickly tell you red, yellow, green, whether it's suspicious and why it's suspicious or malicious, or if it's okay. And then also giving you the capability of not only seeing everything on the internet, but your attack surface on the internet, and then how your attack surface is related to the articles that we publish. So if you go look at an article, it's great, and then you have to see, do I have this infrastructure? Do I have these vulnerabilities? Do I have this thing that's running? But just imagine if there's a way for you that we already know everything you have based upon your domain, and say, these 8 articles you should read. There's 1,000 that are published, but these 8 match things that you do business with or that you have. So then you can take action to prevent something from happening, or even potential threat actors that are targeting you, because we're seeing all this information. It gives us the capability of seeing it, but we will have the ability for you to see some feeds and different things to utilize. But you have to also remember that Google and Microsoft take our blacklist and put it in production in 10 to 15 minutes. So a lot of organizations are using our data to make their services better or to make their products even function today, security organizations. So the short answer is yes, that is coming shortly in the future. And so we'll have a workshop and announce all this and do a big product release to show you all the new features and functionality, and then new workshops that will show you those features and how to use them to make yourself even more secure at your organizations.
Awesome. Thanks, Benjamin.
Yeah.
We're right up against time now. So any closing thoughts?
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I tried to pick something that from a known good, starting with a domain that is good and trying to show you the methods and the processes that you can go through to do an investigation when you don't have access to the systems or the data, to piece it together and figure out exactly what's happening. So this is an example of a Magecart exercise where a skimmer has been added to a document object model. When that gets downloaded and executed, credentials are stolen and sent directly to the threat actor, bypassing the infrastructure of the legitimate site. So it's not really detectable by them. But RiskIQ sees it because we collect the data as a real user and interact with the website as real users do through the same mechanisms to gather this information and understand the risks that are out there, and then able to detect them and prevent them from occurring by blacklisting them or taking down that infrastructure. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Benjamin. You can always reach out to success@riskiq.net with any additional questions. Thank you to Jordan, Adam, and Benjamin for a great workshop. And finally, thank you all for attending. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.